Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Longley's Line Podcast. I am your host, Stephen Longley. Remember to like, follow, subscribe on all of our social medias. Stephen Longley for me, Longley's Line for the show, and Lightstyle Studio for our studio here. Today, I have a very special guest. For those of you that have been following since the jump, you know that we did just audio for a while before we moved on to video here. And the first episode that came out was with our guest, Mr. Bryon Evans. Bryon, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me back.
Before we get jumping into really anything, go ahead and promote your social medias from the jump, wherever anybody can find you, things like that.
Yeah, you can find me on my website. It's bryonevansfilms.com. My name is spelled a little uniquely. It is Bryon. And my handle's at bryonevansfilms.com.
Perfect. And that's where everybody can find anything they want to. And if, like how I said, you guys were here from the jump, we went over Bryon's story. We got into all the details about traveling and everything like that, which was really interesting. And so to kind of go back a little bit, when you were young, what was kind of the first thing you wanted to do when you were growing up? Did you have anything in mind, like maybe I want to,
I started
surf or something?
Drawing at a very young age, probably about 6 years old.
Yeah.
And, boy, this is going to date me, but so I was born in 1980. I grew up in the 80s, and there was like a surf company called TNC.
Okay.
And it had a yin and yang symbol. And I remember as a little kid drawing that symbol, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Like it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
And so I was really into art as a child and loved art class through school, and got into comic books via Tim Burton's Batman. I saw that movie and it blew me away, and I bought my first comic book and started drawing comic books. And so I really kind of had an artist's nature in me. I didn't know if that was what I was going to do.
Right.
I knew that drawing comic books probably wasn't a very lucrative career.
Sure. Turn into Stan Lee or something, hopefully.
Yeah, you never know. And I studied those artists, and I loved them a lot, and like Spawn and all those different comics at the time. So that was kind of like my first love. And now with what I do now in video production, I see how the comic books served me well. It's sequential storytelling.
Storyboard.
Yeah, it's a storyboard. Yeah. And so I think maybe that was just kind of a subliminal thing that was leading me to the path I'm in now.
It's funny how you say that, because I've had a number of different directors come on here. And it's funny because it seems like one of the common factors has been being an artist of some sort.
Really?
Like drawing, because we had Steve Dixon on, Andrew Arguello, like a couple of them, and they were talking about their first initial thing was drawing in some way. And then because the same thing with comic books, you get the storyboard, which a lot of people don't realize if they're not into like what goes on behind the scenes. Storyboarding is huge because you have this scene that you want to film, then it's going to be followed by this one, and then this one, and this, much like a comic book. And then as you're kind of getting the feel for drawing, do you think you're going to make a career out of this, or kind of more of just a hobby that's segued into something else?
When I got into high school, it was kind of the time when the internet and computers were starting to really take off, and I knew that if I could learn computer graphics or 3D animation or something, I could take my art and maybe have a good career with it. Not be a comic book artist, but at least apply that to the computer. So I kind of started like a lot of kids. I got a hand-me-down computer. I got some hacked copies of Photoshop.
Sure, just the big old computers.
Yeah. And just started teaching myself. I learned Photoshop. I got into a little bit of web design with like Dreamweaver, and then I discovered a little program called Premiere. This was like Premiere 5, I think. Okay.
Yeah.
And I was also a musician at the time. In my teenage years, I played the drums in a couple of bands, some punk bands and a hard rock band. And we always had a camera on us. We were actually playing some shows. This is in Southern California, by the way. This is my past life before I moved to Reno.
In Southern California, yeah.
Yeah, and so we always had someone like videoing our shows, some of our parties, backyard parties, and things like that. And
behind the scenes.
Yeah, and but we were a cool band. It was a lot of fun. We did it for about 5 years, and I ended up taking all those hi-8 tapes at the time, digitizing them, and making a movie about us. And that was the first thing I ever edited in Premiere.
Yeah.
And I immediately fell in love with the process of editing. It was just so fun to tell a story and to apply it to my band and to music. And
seeing
just
the final product of what it looks like.
Yeah, and so it was just kind of a... And once I started learning those programs, I started feeling like, okay, maybe this could be a job in the future. This could be a career. I knew that the rock star thing, again, was kind of a difficult one to crack, and I didn't think we were going to make any money doing that, which we never did.
Yeah, just having fun playing with your buddies at different shows.
I wish it was like that. We took ourselves too seriously. We wanted to become rock stars.
Yeah, where everyone has the idea, I'm going to be Axl Rose or something.
My guitar player singer definitely wanted to be that person.
Yeah, and then everyone takes it a little too seriously and kind of takes the fun out of all of it.
It can. You got to watch yourself. I mean, now looking back, I would love to keep playing the drums, but if I did, I would do it for fun or play with a band for fun.
Yeah, have a good time with it instead of like trying to get that paycheck.
Yeah, which there was no money.
Yeah, it was like, I'll cut a rug on some guitar here or the band here.
Yeah, and props to those bands out there that are doing it, that are making money, that are gigging, because it's a tough.
It's a grind.
A tough one. Yeah.
And then, so as you're going through musician life, are you still drawing at this time too, or is it kind of everything is...
All of that kind of started getting applied to the computer and doing some fun things in Photoshop. That brought me into photography. Just had a little point and shoot where I was taking promo photos of the band at this time. And so it all kind of transitioned into that. I stopped drawing around that time and haven't really picked it up since.
Focused on the graphic design part of it.
Yeah. But now, I mean, I've got enough of skill. Like, I have done some hand-drawn storyboards for some of my productions. I use computer programs now. But every once in a while, it's nice to be able to at least just draw a frame. And go, this is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
and show it to somebody.
Instead of trying to make something up, and then if I drew it, it'd be 2 stick figures. See? It's like this. They're standing still.
But that can work if you've ever seen Martin Scorsese's storyboards. They are stick figures. Yeah.
It was like one of the most creative and well-known directors of our time. Looks like, 12-year-old drew it. And nothing against Scorsese. My handwriting is just as good as my artistic work. It's not very.
Right.
So then now that you kind of go through, you've got the band, was there a part of you that, like you kind of said, where you thought the rock star dream was happening, or once that started to fizzle out, did you think, maybe I'll go into this thing that I picked up while I was with the band? The band broke up in 2003. Yeah. And it was crushing, but I also knew it wasn't going to last. And we lasted 5 years, which is pretty good for a band. Yeah. That's when I went full on into graphic design, web design, and a little bit of video production. I had a job at a hospital warehouse, and I ended up in a print shop making copies. Yeah, making copies. All right. It was pretty boring, but it did allow me some time actually on the job to learn some Photoshop and do some things. And I just started hustling right away. Like, there was this FedEx driver that came to the print shop every day dropping off packages. And he had this side business making dental teeth caps out of his garage. Okay, like one does.
Yeah, in SoCal, where I'm from, in Hemet, California. And he needed like a logo and a brochure made and a little bit of photography, and I just said I could do it. Yeah. And it was the first thing that I ever inquired about as far as like freelancing, just saying like, oh yeah, I had a little side job. I put it together. I made the logo in Photoshop. I photographed his little teeth caps, made a nice little brochure, and he dug it. And I got my first. I think I charged him $300 or something, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I can make money from
maybe
this.
I can keep this up. So long story short, my guitar player moved up to Reno and helped introduce me to Reno Tahoe. He introduced me to snowboarding in Big Bear down in Southern California. We took a trip up here, kind of fell in love with it. We really were sick of SoCal. We wanted to move. He wanted to move. And we all ended up moving up here in 2007.
Okay.
That was when, if you remember, Reno was kind of booming at the time.
Yeah.
It was before the big crash. There was tons of jobs, all kinds of things going on here. The biggest little city was pretty big to me at the time because I came from a small town. It was all brand new, and I started applying for jobs, and I still kind of was dabbling with graphic design, web design, but I really loved video production the most. I just didn't have much of a reel. I had more of a graphic design reel.
Okay.
And I just started applying at jobs, and this job at Charter Media Cable TV popped up for a video producer. And I applied, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to get it. I doubt it.
Right.
But I got the call back, and I got 2 more callbacks and passed 3 interviews and got this job in cable TV as a video producer. And that's really when my career started in this field. And it was just kind of a blessing because it was really work experience and schooling all in one.
Yeah.
I got to work with a producer there who'd been doing it for 20 years, and he just kind of took me under his wing and showed me lighting, showed me the camera, audio.
Get you a full rundown of how it all works.
Yeah, and the job was great because you got to do everything. You got to contact the client, come up with a concept, write the script, go out, direct, and shoot it. The other producer would help with lighting or audio, and then when I was on that person's shoot, I would do the lighting and audio.
Was it just a two-man thing?
Two-man thing.
Just a two-man job.
Those shoots would last 2 to 3 hours. We'd just knock them out. They'd be on cable TV that week.
That's awesome.
And then we'd go back and edit them. And so I kind of got my chops at Charter Media. In the 5 years I spent there, I produced 330-second commercials.
Wow.
It was crazy.
330-second, just of anything.
All local mom and pop, commercials. Some people have now seen them because it's been, it's been 15 years since I got that job. So 10 years since I left it. But some people still mention my junkie commercial from back in the day. I had a Super Burrito commercial that had a flying burrito with a cape.
I think we all know the commercial.
Are you aware of that one?
I've seen the commercial.
Okay, so that's just kind of funny to know that I exist in someone's brain space in the weirdest way with some of those commercials.
I know what you mean. Like every now and then when because I've done a handful of commercials, so every time one comes up or something happens, they're just like, oh, I saw your commercial. And I was like, which one? They're like, which one? It was like, it's either Diamond Casino, the Take Two that we did. It was an All-Star Rents. It was like, I don't know if any of those other ones are playing, but it's always fun when someone's like, I saw your commercial. Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. I'd get a text, oh, dude, I just saw it. It's so funny. And it was so cool in the beginning. I mean, I came from this small town. Yeah. I was only up here maybe a month before I got that job. And then it took us everywhere. I got to see the whole region from Reno to Carson, Fallon, North Lake, South Lake, and kind of fell in love with this awesome community we have here.
Yeah.
And hearing my voiceover on TV, it didn't get old for a very long time.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Every time it happens, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's nice to have your stuff airing.
Yeah. When it does get aired, or the other times where something gets cut, and then you're like, oh, don't worry, I'll be in this commercial, and you see, and you're like, apparently not.
Oh, man, I feel for you guys, you actors. I know how crushing that can be. It's nature of the beast, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's the thing that comes with the acting lifestyle that you kind of have to remember. You got to have thick skin. Because it's not always you. It's just how something came off. And then, the director has something in mind, and then you could be the perfect fit for it, but then something happens where they see and you're like, I don't think so.
And sometimes it's not even the actor. Sometimes it's just the story, or we overthought it, and it just, this thing that we thought was going to work isn't working. Yeah. And it has to be retooled. It's a lot of factors.
Yeah. With your perspective coming from behind the camera, this is maybe kind of a general or vague question, but it's like when you have a concept in mind for, say, a commercial, how much really goes into it for, like, I don't know how I'm wording this, but from like the actor's perspective, what is it normally kind of like a common thing that you see where it's like, we're going to have to cut this person or make this change, or it all kind of
due to a performance?
Yeah, maybe a performance or just like the actor's.
Well, I would say, first of all, just cast correctly to start.
Yeah, right.
And you can eliminate those problems, because it's incredible to get an amazing actor. Mm-hmm. When you get an amazing actor, they're just giving you take after take.
Yeah.
And now you're just trying to finesse it to what you want or what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. And it makes the whole job easier.
Yeah.
But there are some instances where actors are nervous and they're just, not performing too well, and they're a little rigid, and you got to try to pull that out of them.
Yeah.
And I mean, I haven't had too many issues where it's the performance. Usually I get what I need to get the job done. And it's really just working with the actor, no matter what their skill level is.
Right.
It's about getting them comfortable on camera. The last thing you want them to do is be nervous, dying on camera. You don't want to be yelling at them or making them feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so that's key, is to just get them loose, get them laughing, crack some jokes. I'll often tell them, like, hey, this is easy. You're going to do great.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. You're going to do awesome.
Have fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, so after you go through your time with Charter, you said it was 10 years after you left, or it was 15.
Well, yeah, I'm in my 11th year of freelancing, and so I've technically been up here producing full-time for 15, 16 years now.
So after you leave Charter, what was the switch that went off in your mind that said, you know what, I'm going to go try this on my own? Was there something particular where you were working on a shoot and maybe thought, if I had my own thing, I could do this?
It's a pretty typical story. Middle management decided to eliminate my position. However, they were going to rehire me, pay me more, but I was just going to write and direct, and they were going to hire like a camera person, pay them almost nothing to shoot, hire an editor, pay them very little to edit, and I'd be kind of like directing them.
Okay.
And at the time, shooting and editing was my bread and butter. I loved it. It's the funnest part of filmmaking.
Yeah.
I mean, I love writing and I love directing, but really the cinematography and the editing is telling the story. And I just didn't like the idea of the position. A lot of people didn't. A lot of other producers at the time were leaving the company. And so when I mentioned this, my family encouraged me. They said, why don't you go freelance? And I was like, oh man, I don't know.
That's a gamble.
Yeah, and it's hard to leave a steady paycheck and insurance and all those things.
Yeah.
But I started thinking about it. I had a few months to kind of ponder it, because I knew this thing was happening soon. And I talked to some existing clients at Charter who loved me and who loved the work I was doing. And I said, hey, if I left, would you still hire me? And they said, absolutely. We'd love to keep working with you. Yeah. So I knew I had a few clients in my back pocket, and just decided to take the leap.
Nice.
And man, it was by far one of the best decisions I ever made. It's a journey. I mean, it's a challenge. I'll tell you that. The first few years were very challenging, and but through word of mouth and social media and doing good work, the business started to grow.
Yeah. And then so you see, those clients, because as you said, it's like they're working with you, even though they're under, they paid this certain big company to take you on. You're the one that's got the hands-on and are there doing everything. So
and that's what I learned at the job, was that they were already sold on television. They knew television worked. It was all about just what it cost and what kind of the schedule they were going to get. But all they really cared about was the creative.
Yeah.
Every one of them would say, because this is local cable, all right. So you got to remember, everyone was saying, like, please don't make it cheesy.
Yeah, we don't want a cheesy commercial.
Yeah, they were terrified of getting the really poor, low quality, cheesy commercial. So we had to sell them on the creative and say, look, don't worry, we got you. We're going to make something amazing. And that was kind of the goal, was to always create something that was not, beyond the local cheese, and more of a national level.
Yeah.
And just proving that, I think that's when folks started to trust me. And then, you build up a reel and an example of the kind of work you can do.
What was your first freelance job? Do you remember?
Up here?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
After you leave Charter, you kind of have a client list ready to go. Do you
Like
remember
Squeeze
that
In
first
was an
call?
early client. They're an awesome client. We did some fun music videos for them.
Music videos.
Yeah. Remember Gangnam Style?
Yeah.
So they did a spoof of that called Omelette Style, I believe. And it's like a shot-for-shot remake of that music video.
Yeah.
With egg costumes and bacon costumes.
Awesome.
And that was really cool. But some of the clients, like I had right in the beginning, I had from Charter, attorney Marilyn York. She did some pretty wild commercials. And Evolution Tattoo, I've been working with them for like a long time. I just did another commercial for them last year.
Oh, wow. So you keep the clients on.
Yeah, a lot of them have been repeat customers.
Sort of like do they have anything, not to go too inside baseball on it, but do they have a retainer or anything, or it's just kind of, if they want something, they'll get a hold of you?
Yeah. I mean, the commercials I do, they have some longevity. A lot of clients air them for a year or two.
Right.
And
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. But after a while, it's nice to update it, and so it's cool. They come back to me, and then I have to top the thing I did last time.
Yeah.
Which is always the challenge.
The first time, yeah.
Yeah. And so I've done like, I think 5 or 6 commercials for Evolution Tattoo. So every time I'm like, oh boy, what are we going to do this time?
Yeah.
But we always figure something out.
Yeah. And you bring up tattoos. I'm like, I just keep thinking I want more tattoos.
Right.
I just keep thinking about it. I'm like, you don't have money, just hang on. But then something will happen. I'm like, I should get a new tattoo. But then
I should too. All this is from SoCal.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten anything in a long time.
The most recent one's like up here, and I'm like, I just want to get the legs blasted, and I keep thinking, I was like, I know where I'm going to go for my next ones, but then I keep thinking, you have to save money, or like I want something on my forearm, but then I remember, oh wait, you're an actor. You might want to not put something on your forearms.
Good point.
That's kind of my whole...
Stay away from the face.
Wheelhouse. Well, that's next week.
Oh, okay.
I have the teardrops coming.
Nice.
It's going to be like a rainstorm.
All right. Well, it'll work for some roles.
Yeah. I think it'll be fine. Nobody's going to notice. But I think about that. Like, I don't want to get anything below the arms just because acting-wise, and I keep thinking, it would be badass if I got something. I'm like,
My wife just got both her forearms tattooed. And she's got like matching dancing skeletons, and
cool.
And she got it at Evolution Tattoo.
My wife got
a good buddy.
Sort of the same thing where we got somewhat matching tattoos. Where I've got my favorite dinosaur up here, and she got hers on her wrist. So hers is like Jurassic Park themed.
Okay.
It's because that's one of her favorite movies. So it's the Velociraptor from
Nice. That's what I was going to ask.
It's just a nice little thing right there that says "Clever Girl." I was like, that's pretty awesome.
What's your dino?
Mine's it's just these guys here.
Oh, nice.
So it's a
was that Triceratops?
Triceratops, thank you. I was like Tyrannosaurus, that's not right. But Triceratops, so it's from 2 old 90s shows. The movie We're Back.
Okay.
Not a lot of people have seen it, which kind of blows my mind. But it's like John Goodman is the main T-Rex, and it's this whole big... They find these dinosaurs in prehistoric time, take them, and give them personalities. So then the Triceratops is just this big fella that's hanging out in the background eating hot dogs. He was like, have you guys tried hot dogs? They're awesome.
That sounds familiar, man.
Right? A lot of people, like, if you've seen a little bit of it, you know what it is, but it's an old 90s one, and then an old 90s TV show called Extreme Dinosaurs.
Okay.
Where exact same premise, where they find dinosaurs, give them a serum, and then they turn into superheroes.
Nice.
It was like
live action? Cartoon?
Cartoon.
Okay.
Not a single person has seen Extreme Dinosaurs, and I know why, because it went on for 1 season. And it was
memorable to you. I mean,
silly.
That's something.
Oh, I had the action figures and everything. You know
that's
what I
great.
mean? So, to get back on track, so after you go freelance, you get everything going. Did you have any sort of aspirations to want to veer away from commercials and do anything a little different, like documentary, feature films, anything like that? Or did you kind of like the lane that you were in because of how much fun you were having doing it?
Well, I mean, I had a lot of experience with 30-second commercials because we did so many of them, and that's good. They pay the bills.
Yeah.
Commercial advertising is great. It's funny, a lot of narrative DPs will try to get into commercials or have a challenge getting into commercials, and then also vice versa. Commercial DPs will have a hard time getting into narrative.
Right.
Right off the bat, though, I was doing commercial work. Documentary style stuff came pretty quickly also, with a little bit of travel, I think, that we talked about maybe last time.
Yeah.
And then corporate video, or you could call it industrial, whatever. That stuff was good too, which again pays the bills. And every once in a while, but in me was always the filmmaker, dreaming of being a Tarantino or someone.
Yeah.
And so when those opportunities came along, there was a couple of them with just some local friends and filmmakers we met in the area, and did some small short films. But it was a while before I really did anything on my own, and which we talked about last time was my short horror comedy Inflatio, which shot in 2017, I think, no, 2018, and then released in 2019. And I just been kind of like honing my skills, building up to that moment. And I think I have a problem too with like marinating on projects too long. I sit on them a little bit.
Yeah.
I got to get better at that and get more of them out there. But thankfully, that one I think benefited from it. From me taking my time.
Because it's always just in the crock pot.
Yeah.
Waiting, and then you think, well, maybe I'll get it out there, and then I'll tweak this idea or something. So when you have that in mind, for now that movie has come out and did well, and was a great film, do you have any current aspirations to do another one in the same lane, like same horror comedy genre, or do you want to maybe do a drama, or what?
I have a ton of aspirations, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Through COVID and the pandemic and all that, I did a lot of writing. I've really been trying to hone my screenwriting skills. And so I've drafted probably about 3 or 4 shorts that I'd really love to do. But you got to be careful. You got to pick the one that's worth the time and energy to go into.
Right.
And I have been writing my first feature. I'm like in the 3rd act, and that's been taking me far too long, but I pick away at it here and there.
Yeah.
What has been cool, though, in the last couple of years is I've DP'd a lot for other directors. And so shot 2 short films that are completed now. One last year was a horror short called The Mantis for writer-director Wiley Rush.
Okay.
I met him through the festival circuit. I met him at Nightmares Festival, and then ran into him again at FilmQuest.
Okay.
And he asked myself and my wife Shannon Blaz to DP and have her do production design. And so we did that last year, and that wrapped, and it was pretty cool.
Nice.
A lot of fun, really gory.
They're good stuff.
Yeah, more gore than I've ever worked with, and Shannon did an amazing job with some headless torsos and other props and things like that. So that was cool. And then just a few months ago, DP'd a French New Wave short film called Un Homme and a Lady, which is French for a man and a lady.
Oh, gotcha. I had no idea.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I don't know French, but it was really cool. Amazing director, writer, Mitch Yapko, and who I also met through the festival circuit. So I think that's what was one of the best things about Inflatio and getting to go to festivals was just the networking with other filmmakers.
Yeah.
I've wanted to work with Mitch since 2018, and it finally came together just a few months ago in Virginia City, and towards the end of winter. And I knew nothing about French New Wave when he brought it to me.
Sure.
Yeah, are you a French New Wave fan?
I couldn't tell you what that is.
Gotcha. Well, it's pretty cool when you dig into it, because French New Wave was like the first indie filmmakers.
Okay.
Basically, they threw away a lot of the rules that filmmakers in the 50s were doing. Just they're the first ones to kind of just go handheld, get rid of the lights, steal locations. They just show up in the middle of a busy Paris boulevard and just shoot with their actors, and it didn't matter if the background was there or they were looking at the camera.
Yeah.
So they started breaking a lot of rules. They did jump cuts to kind of speed things up, and none of this is really revolutionary now, but it was at the time.
Yeah.
And so that film was really fun. We shot the whole thing handheld in a day in a busy Virginia City.
Wow.
With people, on a Saturday walking back and forth with our actors, and
Just looking over.
Yeah, and just rolling with it.
Yeah.
And so it turned out great. and that's being submitted to festivals right now.
That's
so
great.
I think it's just been cool doing stuff for other directors, trying to kind of figure out their vision and see what I can bring to the table for it.
And then you also get your own kind of little tweaks on it yourself, where you can see, oh, this is how they're doing it, and then you can put that in the back of your mind. It was like, I kind of like that, or something for your own projects coming up. And then, so as you're, to kind of go back to what you're working on, one thing that I thought of, where it's a lot of directors, producers, anybody that works on movies always says that the third act is the hardest, because you've got to end it in a right way.
Got to tie a lot of things together.
Exactly. So with kind of that, what inspirations have you had from other movies that kind of lead you down your screenwriting? Do you ever think like, oh, I'm kind of going down a Tarantino or Scorsese or something like that? Do you ever take inspirations from other like big name movies where you're kind of like, oh, maybe I'll do into this? Do you have any that kind of stick out in mind?
I mean, all the time. David Fincher is just a huge influence to me. I love the camera work in his films. It's very controlled, very precise. And obviously Tarantino. I mean, the feature I'm writing would be just crazy. It would be kind of a Tarantino thing where I'm just throwing everything at it. It's the kind of movie I want to go see, and hopefully something that folks would want to be really entertained by. But yeah, I'm always pulling from movies. I'm constantly studying film, and if I see something cool in a movie, I will try to write it into a concept or a script. Like, just say like a oneer, always wanted, everyone wants to do a oneer, which is, a shot with no edits, a continuous thing. And sometimes
so hard.
And sometimes I'll just pitch it to a client. And so like with Evolution Tattoo, we did a whole commercial that was a oneer. And went around the whole shop in a really cool way. And what's cool is the client trusts me to do the creative, and they like the concept, and then I'm also experimenting and learning at the same time and progressing. And so every project, I think, is an opportunity to try something new, do something a little different. And I definitely pull a lot from television, film.
It makes me think when you say the oneers, all of the old-timey movies, you can look back at really anyone that you want to, and the amount of times there is just a oneer that is a whole musical number or just a monologue that's for 10 minutes straight, it just blows my mind. Like,
did you see Babylon?
I haven't seen that one yet. No.
Man, there are some oneers in that that are insane.
Pretty intense.
I mean, it's the same director from La La Land, which had a lot of great oneers.
That makes sense,
Yeah, so he kind of took it to another level.
Because you take that old school vibe of like the 50s with, we've got Sinatra up here. You look at old Sinatra, Dean Martin, even John Wayne movies or something where it's like they're doing their entire scene and there are zero cutaways.
Yeah.
The entire time. And you're like, how are they doing that?
And that keeps the audience's attention.
Yeah.
It keeps them locked in. It's a subliminal thing. You know?
You do too many of those, and they're going to be like, oh. Boy,
well, it can get very cutty, and you're just like a Transformers movie. It's just you're on a shot for 2 seconds, maybe, half a second.
And then it's just,
it's kind of like overload. And so I think it's a good split, good balance is what you want.
And then, so now, you've kind of worked with those other couple of directors and everything. What do you have coming next? What are you currently working on? Anything that you're excited about that you're, like you said, the other one was just kind of in your head, but do you have anything that you're working on that you're excited about, really? Yeah,
my wife and I have a short that we've been wanting to get off the ground for a while, and it's just been lagging a little bit, and we're going to start working on that soon. It's a really powerful female story that we feel very passionate about, and again, I just kind of celebrated 10 years of freelancing, and I think naturally had a bit of a retrospective moment to go, okay, what did I accomplish in this last 10 years? What am I doing? Where am I going? I've been thinking a lot about that, and it's definitely we want to get into more narrative and television and get our work out there more. My wife's doing amazing work as a production designer, and I think she just has tons of potential to continue to grow in the industry.
Yeah.
And that's been a thing that was really cool too over the 10 years, is that she eventually kind of just joined me, and now both of us are actively working all the time, and so that's been a really cool blessing.
That's great.
Yeah.
So now that you kind of have everything under your belt, is there anything that you can tell us about the story, or kind of any without giving anything away? But
I'm kind of getting to the point where I don't want to talk about it anymore, because it's like
beating a dead horse.
Yeah, and it's like we'll talk when it's done.
Once you get it out there and it's ready to go.
But I really do want to start kind of like a new umbrella, like beyond Bryon Evans Films, and just create kind of a new production company, that a second one that is more of an umbrella for narrative work and the narrative work that we want to do. Because I have a ton of projects I really want to start moving forward on, and I do want to make this feature, within the next 3 to 5 years.
Sure, yeah.
I definitely want to get that under my belt, and so I want to create an umbrella that's like more people can join me and just be more collaborative. I don't want to see my name 5 times in the credits. It's Bryon Evans Films Presents, directed and written by blah 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 blah. So that's something that I've been thinking about for a while, and I'm developing, and I think I'm really excited about that. That's kind of the next chapter.
And to just jump back a little from the first episode that we had with your documentaries. So we discussed it a little bit before, how you did kind of win an award for it.
Which one did we discuss? Or was it the horror film?
No, wasn't it? It was something along those lines. But you kind of said with the band, how you did the documentary filmmaking. I may be conflating two things, but did you ever think about going into documentary style filmmaking?
I do it a lot. I mean, I DP'd 2. I contributed to 2 television shows last year on the. There's a network called Curiosity Stream.
Okay.
It's a streaming channel. It was developed by the guy that started Discovery Channel, and it's all science-based documentary.
Yeah.
And we ended up doing a really cool interview with a scientist at the DRI Institute, Desert Research Institute out here. And he had kind of gotten famous for testing ice samples from Greenland or wherever it was, from these glaciers. And these huge they'd just pull out these cones, and it'd go back thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
And the whole premise of the show was that modern day climate science was rewriting history. And he had figured out that a volcano way back in the day erupted in Alaska, and it totally like screwed up Rome.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then we ended up doing 2 more interviews with another scientist in Denver, and then an author who had like written this huge book on Rome in Oklahoma City. And that was fun. And it was like one of those History Channel type shows where they do the reenactments and stuff, of Rome and all that. And then you got the scientists talking. And so it was pretty cool. Yeah. So we got to do that. And that's all documentary style stuff. And then there was another show on the same network randomly that came through called The Real Wild West. And it was the story of the Wild West, but with the story of diverse people and what their true story was in beyond the Hollywood version of Wild West.
Right.
And so we went out to Fallon and interviewed like a Spanish gaucho individual that was kind of like his whole family had
like
grown
third,
up out
fourth
there.
generation.
Yeah,
something.
exactly, and that was really cool. And we got to do some cool B-roll with that. And that show just premiered. I haven't even seen it yet. I need to pull it up.
What was the channel again?
Curiosity Stream.
Curiosity Stream.
Yeah.
You guys heard it? Go find it.
Yeah,
You've
The
got
Real
it.
Wild West. And
Okay.
I cannot remember the name of the environmental one right now. It escapes me.
But something with Iceland and Rome and volcanoes. And
Yeah, climate science stuff. It was really interesting.
Okay, cool.
So I love documentary filmmaking. Every once in a while, some projects come up that are interesting. Documentaries take a lot of time, though, or they can, depending on the subject. But I love them, and yeah, I'm totally down with that type of storytelling. Yeah.
Apologize. I was like, I'm conflating two things here. I was thinking documentary, something else. My mind's everywhere right now.
I like it all. I mean, I really do.
Don't want to pigeonhole yourself into one particular thing.
No, I love good stories, good storytelling, anything with heart and empathy. I'm into.
Good. Well, Bryon, gonna get you out of here. Want to thank you again for coming in. And if you guys hadn't heard the audio version, it's the first episode. You can go back and find it. We've got Bryon Evans here. Before we do get you out of here, go ahead and promote social medias, website, anywhere you'd like people to find you.
Yeah, just check me out at bryonevansfilms.com. If you want a music video, a commercial, a documentary, a short film, a feature film, whatever, we're down. We love to talk to you, and we love collaborating and being creative.
Perfect. Well, Bryon, thanks again for coming in.
Thank you. It's so great to be here again. And congrats, my friend, to keeping this podcast going. You're doing a great job. You're just perfecting. It's getting better and better, and it's a real honor to be with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. And you guys know the drill. Stephen Longley, Longley's Line, Lightstyle Studio. We'll talk to you guys next week.
See you.